Hey, guys, welcome to another episode of Out of Left Field. Graham here with you with Chris Furry all the way out in, Paris, France today, Battle?
Paris, France. Well, just outside of Paris, France, but yeah. Yep.
So you've been to what, England and France, I think, is where I've talked to you so far. What you seen so far? Anything good?
Yeah, I've been here for a couple of days, and let's see. Yesterday, I feel like I walked across France. In reality, I just walked across Paris, and I saw the Eiffel Tower, of course, and I went and walked through the Louvre, and I saw a couple other things, some really nice architecture, sort of down on the Seine River. So it's actually a really beautiful city. I rented a car while I was here, and while that's a really good thing because there's some things going on with labor strikes and things like that have shut the trains down, it is, well, let's just say it's nerve-wracking to drive in Paris.
Sounds like it'd be driving over here in Florida. You get all the crazy people.
Yeah, worse. It's worse.
So
I
if
can
I
say
remember correctly, you're in Rome next week.
Yeah, Rome next week.
Rome next week. Okay. What were you going to say?
I was just saying they drive similarly in the Bay Area, but not quite as bad. So, if that tells you anything. The Bay Area is worse than Los Angeles, and this is worse than the Bay Area.
Well, let's not go for any international traffic tickets while we're at it. How about that?
I don't know that they do that here, to be quite honest with you, because no one pays attention to any traffic laws.
well, here is your goal. You're going to find out if they give traffic tickets in France before you go and report back next week. That is your goal.
Pass. Like hard pass.
Well, if that's the case, then if you aren't going to do anything to get fined, then let's get into some baseball stuff and talk about some guys who are getting fined. I know, guys, we've been into this a lot. We're not going to try and get too deep into the whole using a baseball as a weapon thing, but as most of you guys know, we had another bench-clearing incident. This time it was at Camden Yards in Baltimore. Manny Machado charges the mound on Yordano Ventura. MLB came down. Ventura getting 9 games for the incident. Machado is going to get 4, and I really, really don't like the way this is going.
No, I have a problem with it too. I mean, it's pretty obvious with what happened that this was an intentional situation. I mean, he brushed Machado back a couple of times, got real close to him, and then he hit him, and he's going to lose what really amounts to a start.
Exactly. And if you could take it back kind of at bat, Machado got a single off of him in the first. It was right down the third base line, just fair. And next at bat, he gets 2 fastballs run, right up in on him. And finally Machado gets one. He smacks it. I think everyone thought it was gone. It looked like the wind knocked it down or what. But it was. You could see wind blowing in from center, and center fielder sitting back on the warning track ends up coming in about 5 or 6 feet.
Right.
You see Machado chirping, which I get it. I'd be pissed off too if I'm getting 95+ mile an hour baseballs up and in at me. And he was throwing above the letters. I won't say he was throwing at his head, but we're talking above the stomach, which that's a dangerous place to start throwing because anything errant or a deflection is going to be easily concussion or an injury. So they're jawing whatever, but with next bat, first pitch, slam right in the ribs. Machado drops the bat, comes at the mound, and there is no doubt that it was intentional. You see Ventura drop his hat, drop his glove, and there they go. So got a blow in on him. They went to the ground. At that point, everybody came out. But here's my thing is Ventura has consistently shown over the last 4 years his propensity to do this kind of stuff. He was involved in 2 bench-clearing incidents last year with Toronto and the White Sox. We saw that with when Brett Laurie got hit. And, I mean, there were 2 or 3 different bench clearing incidents. I think there were 6 or 7 ejections in the game, which is unusually high for an incident like that. Normally it's the guys that incited it, maybe a manager, and that's it. But Jeff Passan of Yahoo Sports came out with a report recently and indicated that the Royals front office and even the clubhouse is getting really sick and tired of his stuff. There was a source that he has inside the clubhouse came out and said that, quote, they've long waited for Ventura to grow up only to end up amazed at how he manages to plumb beneath even his own low standards, end quote. I mean, we're talking, this is a kid who's young, he's got a heck of an arm, and the Royals are, at this point, willing to deal him to another team just to get rid of him out of the clubhouse.
Well, and that's the thing. People like that, players like that, become a cancer in the clubhouse. So one of 2 things happen. He either is so, everyone's so against being even in the same clubhouse with him that no one talks to him, and he polarizes every room he walks into, or as has been the case with some position players who sit in the dugout all the time, they start to get into other players' head and bring them down with them. And I think at this point that Ventura is probably becoming that sort of guy. Not that he's getting into other people's head, but that he's so polarizing that just nobody wants to be around him.
Well, and part of that report that Passan gave out is that he's been spouting his mouth off in the clubhouse about how he wanted to hit Jose Bautista next time he faced him. And guys are just getting tired of hearing it. And
yeah,
I don't know,
that doesn't make any sense.
Right. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the fight yet, but what I found really, I guess, telling to me is Salvador Perez, one of the top catchers in Major League Baseball right now, without a doubt. He's a World Series winner, veteran on that team, one of the leaders, jogs after Machado, doesn't sprint. He looked surprised at the pitch coming inside and did nothing until the first blow was thrown to stop Machado from attacking his own teammate. So to me, if I'm already seeing that now, that speaks volumes to me of how he's cared for and felt about in that locker room. Because there's no doubt that, like I said, Machado was hit on purpose, but even if you're not going to go stand behind your own teammate because you know what, he's shooting his mouth off and he has what's coming, that's really what it screams on national TV. And I think that goes to show just how immature this kid is. And I don't know if he's really going to get the chance to grow up. He has the arm talent, and that might be what keeps him around long term or long enough to try and grow up. But I mean, he got rocked.
Realistically, the kid's on a team full of young kids, and the only team that's going to take a chance on him, because he has the arm speed. I don't know that he has the control so much, but he's a good pitcher. And the only team that's going to take him is a team that has 2 or 3 really seasoned veteran guys in the clubhouse, especially in the bullpen, who can keep an eye on him and probably even maybe take a little bit of control over the guy. You put him in a rotation with guys like, for instance, the Giants. You put him in a rotation with guys like Bumgarner, Kane, Cueto. They're not going to let that kind of stuff happen. You know what I mean? But teams that have a real young rotation, they're not going to want him because there's not going to be anybody watching him.
Right. And, I mean, to your point, yeah, his control, I'm looking, he's about a 2-to-1 strikeout to ball pitcher. He's career 370 strikeouts to 168 walks, so right about 2-to-1. So, I mean, obviously he has extreme velocity.
Right.
But you don't always expect guys with that much velocity to have pinpoint location. A lot of times you see it's one or the other. Obviously, guys like Kershaw and Bumgarner, Arrieta, you see guys that are able to do both. But a lot of times it doesn't doesn't translate into both. The biggest issue that I have
Kershaw, Bumgarner, and Arrieta aren't going to hit 100 miles an hour.
Well, true, but I mean, I'm looking at velocity. If you're hitting 94 and above, I mean, you're not throwing 100. I mean, one of the best pitches for Steven Strasburg, while his fastball is great, is that changeup. I mean, that thing falls off the table when you're taking 10 miles an hour off of a pitch. I mean, that thing's deadly because you're reacting to the arm speed. And then all of a sudden that thing just falls in the dirt, and you're just wailing on something that fell, almost in front of the plate.
Right.
Here's my issue with Major League Baseball, though. You're giving Manny Machado 4 games for. I understand he charges the mound and he takes a swing. I think it's unfair that he's going to pay that kind of a penalty because he got hit, but I get it. You can't allow someone to freely charge the mound because they're ticked off and not penalize them.
Well, especially a Manny Machado. Manny Machado charges the mound. It's what he does. He jaw jacks. He charges the mound. He likes to fight, and he's got the attitude of someone who likes to fight. So I think that they really took that into consideration when they handed down the suspension because this is not his first time charging the mound.
I don't know if I'd say that was in consideration. I think baseball is going to look at anyway. You know what? Look, at this point, we got to do something. I mean, the kid's 23 years old. He already has an attitude. Yeah, he's a great player, but he's already kind of got that unfortunate swagger about him, if you will. I don't mean that in a positive way, where he really thinks he is the best that there is. He's entitled. He is, and actually, you saw him this year in a spring training game. He got ejected for getting called out on a strike 3 and took some off of his bat. And what's the one no you don't do is draw a line in the dirt. And he draws a line over the outside corner and immediately got, I mean, just things that, you got to be smarter than that. I get it, spring training, but don't, get that kind of mentality out of your head. But I'm okay with the 4 games, and I get you're losing money, but Ventura got suspended for 9. Now, he didn't throw at his head. He threw at his ribs. But it's a lot harder than the fist, and Ruth Odor got 7 games. But the difference is positional players are going to miss all of those games. Ventura is a starting pitcher. He misses at most 2 starts, and most likely 1 if they're going to keep him in the rotation, and I don't see a deal being done anytime soon. Ned Yost can work that rotation around where you move someone back a day, working with an off day, and you don't have to worry about losing him for more than 1 start. So yes, he's getting technically more games based on the actions that he took, but the detriment to the team is more so towards Baltimore than it is towards the aggressor in Kansas City.
Right. This is a problem with Major League Baseball's rules. I think something that they really need to address is how, if players are going to do something worthy of a suspension, they need to address how they suspend players based on position.
Agreed.
Because suspending a position player, that player misses every single one of those games. So if you're going to suspend a pitcher, then they need to be suspended. A starting pitcher needs to be suspended for X number of starts. And I think a relief pitcher would probably have to be suspended for he can't come in to pitch in relief for X number of games.
Right, and it's one of those things where if that happens, you could use your rest day as a day that you're suspended, which I guess with a 1 game it kind of is what it is. If you're a reliever, like Matt Bush, who threw, I think he got 1 or 2, a couple of games, when he initially hit Bautista. But on this, and I'm not saying that you suspend him for 30 days, because I'm not going to take 30 days worth of money, even though what he did was egregious enough. I still think, again, it should have been a 10, 15-game suspension, regardless of position. It should still have a larger fine to him, because what I read is that they're both being fined, and they're also going to lose the money off of their game fee. But if that's the case, then say, okay, hey, he is suspended for the month of May, or the month of, we'll say the month of June. He can't pitch again until the beginning of July. So that way you're at least getting 3 or 4 games. Now, obviously, you can't take someone out of a rotation for 7, 8. I mean, because at that point that becomes a couple of months, and at that point you lose your effectiveness, and you effectively remove the entire season. But if you can curtail, hey, you know what, you're going to be fined 10 game checks, but you aren't going to be able to start a game until July. To me, that makes the detriment to the Royals at least more so on the same level as it is to Machado.
Right, exactly. And I think that's something that Major League Baseball needs to look at because, and you're going to hear it from position guys that, and I'm sure Manny Machado in his appeal, if he files one, is going to say, hey, I have to sit 4 games. This guy is maybe going to sit 2. And I realize that he's losing 9 days of quote unquote play time, but he's not going to be on the field those 9 days.
Right.
So,
and
he's probably
both have appealed, to your point. Both have appealed. And guys, that is something that we'll let you know what happens on that. Just a reminder, if you ever want to take a look at any of the current stuff in baseball in between the shows, you can check us out on Twitter at OOLeftField. Or if you ever have a question for the show, shoot us an email, ooleftfield@gmail.com. Obviously, Chris is calling in over Skype Wi-Fi, so he has the ability to respond, as do I. So you guys have any questions, please get a hold of us, and we'll be happy to respond. The last thing on this topic, and I found this interesting. They actually asked Joe Madden of what he thought of the fight. And Madden's quote was that he loved it. I think it's a little more tongue-in-cheek, but Anthony Rizzo, his first baseman, chimed in saying, people always go to hockey going, oh, I hope I see a fight. And then he said, quote, I'm not saying you want that with baseball, but the 2 fights this year have been pretty healthy in my opinion, end quote. Now, before I get the hate tweets saying that I'm advocating fight, I'm not. I don't advocate it in a game of baseball, but physical altercations are a part of competitive sports. And you know this. I mean, especially you played football and baseball both in college. Granted, maybe you don't have physical problems in curling, but you get the big picture I'm going for here.
I don't know, man. Those curling stones are pretty heavy, and I think that they get angry enough. Well, most of them are Canadian, so maybe not.
What are you going to do, swing a broom at them?
Maybe.
But big picture, when one member of a team can wield a 90-plus mile-per-hour projectile they can use as a weapon at any time and hit any part of the body they choose, fights are bound to happen. I don't think that Major League Baseball should overreact to the fact that you've seen these. If it continues to be a bigger problem, then yes, suspensions are going to have to become bigger to try and curtail a problem. But I think for the most part, guys see this as mainly either really Bush League stuff in the Odor Bautista or 2 really young kids that either don't respect the game enough and don't respect their own teams enough to do the proper thing. And not so much as Machado as Ventura, but you get my point.
Well, I do get your point. But I will say this, speaking of Bush League, since we're going to talk about Bush League, there's been a lot of Bush League play going on this season. And I don't just mean in the way that people are acting. I mean in, unfortunately, the way some teams are performing, which leads us into our discussion about the White Sox. What's going on with the White Sox, man?
Man, I wouldn't go so far as to call them Bush League, but I think we have seen more so this year, way, way more ebb and flow in the game, hot and cold streaks than we have seen. Yeah, I mean, we have seen epic drop-offs. Right now you have great races in the American League East. Red Sox and the Orioles are going neck and neck. Obviously, this weekend we have the Dodgers-Giants series, and guys, that is a planned topic for next week. So, we'll take a look at those games, and then we'll kind of give you our feedback, because I think that's going to be probably the best race in Major League Baseball for the pennant. I have a hard time thinking that they're not going to win. One of those 2 are going to take the divisional crown, but that's going to be a consistent push. But man, the White Sox started off on a tear. Right now the Rockies are in. they're 28-33. They're 7.5 games back. I don't think that's going to happen. I can guarantee you the Padres aren't, because the Padres are in the midst of rebuilding. And we'll get into part of that here in just a minute, talking about the White Sox.
You can't call it rebuilding anymore. It's been 30 years. So sometimes I forget that the Padres are a member of the NL West, but it could happen with the Rockies. The Rockies are a team that could make that happen. Also, guys like Goldschmidt could get really hot, and the Diamondbacks could kick in.
They could. I mean, right now the Diamondbacks are 10.5 back. They're bottom in the West. But Greinke is really picking it up. We mentioned his name early, I think on the first show, that he was one of the guys that was just really having a hard time finding this stuff. And he's settled in. Goalie, he's a perennial all-star.
Greinke walked into a hitter's park, though.
Yes, he did. And he is very much a contact pitcher. So, I mean, that's tough for him. I think what you're going to end up seeing is, the Nats and the Mets are going to be head-to-head. The Cardinals and the Pirates are going to fight for second place in the Central and hopefully a wild card spot, because I really don't see the Cubbies backing off. They're the only team in the majors that have less than 20 losses. They're 41-18 right now. So, they're kind of good.
They'd have to nosedive.
Yeah, unfortunately, they lost to, even though I'm a Braves fan, I can't believe the Braves beat your Giants 2 out of 4 and have beat the Cubs. But I don't think that's going to be a consistent thing. Back to the Sox topic. The Sox, starting off in April, were off on a tear. They had the turmoil in the locker room about the LaRoche thing with his kid, Adam LaRoche walking away, who, by all accounts, was a top-notch guy, just a locker room guy, a fan favorite, a teammate favorite. He was that guy that that guys really were drawn to and cared about. They started off the month of April. They went 17-8. They were 3 games ahead of Detroit. Their batting average as a team, they were batting .239 with a .307 OPS and .381 slugging, 65 extra base hits. So they were knocking the ball. Hits are coming off the bat. Pitchers allowed 183 hits, 67 earned, which over the course of a month, 67 earned runs, not too shabby. And they were just under 3 strikeouts per walk, a 1.13 whip. I don't know, man. I mean, they were converting saves. They had a good team ERA. Team ERA was .272. Opposing hitters were hitting 2.25, .287 OPS. I mean, they were hitting their spots. Offense was up. Defense was good. And then May comes around and nosedive. 11-17 in the month of May. They go from being 3 games ahead of the Tigers to 2 games behind the Royals. And if you go back and look at a lot of the stats, it was very much more so a product of the pitching than the hitting.
Right.
Hitters basically stayed on pace.
The problem is it's not getting any better. I mean, they're having trouble even putting a single win together in the month of June. And, Gonzalez just got his first win of the season.
Right.
And he's 1-1. I mean, he's got one win that he just picked up. He's got 1 loss, and then he's got 5 or 6 no decisions. And then all of a sudden, that sort of thing happens to him, which, okay, Gonzalez, he's a great pitcher, but he's not. He's a good pitcher, but he's not great. But now Chris Sale is your only saving grace, and that guy's not winning games.
Well, Chris Sale has been lights out. Now, I mean, Chris Sale is his pitching's been good. It's a supporting cast. Exactly, and that's what's what's really hurting him is when he pitches well. I mean, he still is probably. I think he will likely get overlooked for a Cy Young because of the way the team is performing. But if they are even close to being able to contend, it will be because of his arm. He's 10-2 on the year right now, a .287 ERA, and it's in 13 starts. I mean, he's given up 10 home runs. He's walked 19. He struck out 86. I mean, he's 8.51 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's looking solid.
And the key I think, especially for the White Sox, who have kind of a young and inexperienced bullpen, is that he's going deep into games.
Exactly. I mean, you look at at their depth chart. Jose Quintana, one of their starters, he's giving up more than one more run per game than he was in April. His ERA jumped by over 1 run. So let me kind of pace this, and obviously we're looking at 3 more games between April and May. They played 25 in April, played 28 in May. Pitchers allowed 183 hits in April, we said, right? 249 hits allowed in the month of May. 115 earned runs. They almost doubled up their earned runs in the month of May than they had in the month of April. Their strikes per walk went down. Their team ERA went from a 2.72 to a 4.15.
Okay, so have we gotten to the point that I brought up last week? Are we at that place now when we say what is going on with the pitching in baseball this year? Because that is a pitching failure.
You can say that, but the issue is at that point, then who are you looking at as, not every pitcher is going to be what we're used to. We've been saying that more based off the fact of that Cy Young winners and guys who I think that the majority of fans consider to be an ace of a staff, a top-tier pitcher, are struggling. Sure. Right now, the two pitchers with the most starts is Quintana and Sale, and Jose Quintana struggled he big time in the month of May. Now his ERA is actually a little better than Chris Sale's, but he's also thrown almost 20 fewer innings.
Right. But what I'm saying is, as a staff, the White Sox pitching staff has just crumbled.
Yes.
And it's not something you typically see staff-wide. Yes, you might have one guy who maybe at one point was pitching really well. I'm looking at you again, Harvey. I'm sorry. I don't mean to pick on you. But who at one time in his life was pitching really well, and then all of a sudden he's not. Well,
but to be fair, I know you haven't seen it. He's rattled off 2 straight fantastic starts. I mean, it looks like for him, he may have finally kind of gotten back on course, and we're starting to see.
Or he listened to our podcast, one of the two.
Yeah, hey, I'm good with that one. Tweet us at OO Left Field, Matt Harvey. Give us a follow. We'll follow you back.
Yeah, absolutely. But when you see that happen to an entire pitching staff in a single month, you jump 2 full points in your ERA as a staff in a single month, and you allow, twice as many hits?
Yeah.
There's something wrong there. That's not one guy having problems with his mechanics. There is something wrong in that clubhouse.
It is, and I think it's more where the bottom part of your rotation struggles, and the big guy in that was Matt Latos. And at the time when I was compiling all this, Latos really, his numbers floored me. He started off this season 4-0 with a 1.84 ERA in the month of April.
That sounds like Matt Latos.
I mean, for him, and he's usually an upper 3 ERA pitcher. Nice. Well done. Really was anchoring the rotation, 17-8 for a good reason. We get to May. His ERA in the month of May jumped to 6.41 with a 2-1 record. His ERA went from 1.84 to 4.02. And his depth in games dropped. He went at least 6 innings or more in every start in April. Quality starts. Okay. He only made it through 6 innings in 1 start in May. And he had 13 more earned runs in May than in April, 16 and 19 earned runs respectively.
So what kind of response is this prompted from the White Sox? They're going to get rid of him, right?
They already have.
They're going to put him out on assignment.
Already did. They DFA'd him, I believe, on, let me see what it was, on June 9th, so 2 days ago. And then right after he gets DFA'd, so does Jimmy Rollins, who signed with him after leaving the Dodgers this past season. Latos has bounced around almost as much as his ERA has since the 15 season. 4 teams in a 2-season stretch. And, right. when he went to the Angels, or I guess before he went to the Angels, I mean, he was a career solid pitcher. His ERA was a little bit higher. But if you look at before he goes to L.A., his first year was in 2009. He had a 4.62 ERA. Granted, you're a young kid, you're just coming up in the bigs. Yeah, you're going to have a little bit of, you're going to have those jitters. But from 2010 to 14, okay, mind you, his first 6 seasons were all in the National League. His highest ERA was a 3.48, aside from his opening year. He was on the lower spectrum of the threes, even managed to get just sub-3 in 2010. Then he goes to the Angels, 4.91. Now, he only pitched in a couple of games, and then was and this is what got me. He pitched 2 games for L.A., gets traded to the Dodgers. In 6 games, he starts 5. He goes 24 1/3, has and maybe this kind of is a starter, had a 6.66 ERA. Just saying. Wow. From there, he went to Miami. I thought he was going to bolster Miami's rotation, sitting behind Jose Fernandez. I thought would be good as far as being, kind of a veteran there for him. And he still stayed high. He still stayed at a 4.48 ERA for a 4.95 ERA for the 2015 season. And in 11 games, he's at 4.62, and he's been designated for assignment. So I don't know what happened with him moving around, but once he left Cincinnati, something's gone on. He's lost mechanic. I don't know what it is, but something happened with him, and I don't get a chance to watch a ton of his games. They don't show out here, and I don't have the baseball package yet. But it's really, really surprised me that a guy who's a 3.57 career ERA is, over 1 run per 9 innings higher in the last 2 seasons than he was his entire career. I don't understand it.
Right. And, I said this kind of jokingly as we were discussing what we were gonna touch on in today's show, that maybe the Giants would pick him up, but it could be interesting, though, if they did. Maybe Johnny Cueto knows what's wrong with Matt Latos, and
they played together for a while.
Yeah, and maybe going to San Francisco and sitting in the clubhouse with Cueto again will calm him down. Maybe remind him a little bit of Cincinnati. Maybe make him feel better about life. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with Matt Latos. I think that leaving Cincinnati was jarring to him.
Now, guys, if you're hearing the same thing I am and you want to get at Chris for saying every single good pitcher and good outfielder on the market should go to San Francisco, hit us up at Twitter, on Twitter at OOLeftField. That's at OOLeftField, or you can email us at ooleftfield@gmail.com. Because let's be honest, you think every single player should go to San Francisco. You want them to have an unlimited amount of roster spots.
What I'm saying is that if you're going to tweet to at OOLeftField and you're going to call me biased, it's spelled BIASED. And yes, I am. I'm a little biased.
A little?
Oh, well, a little. I love the game more than I love the team, but I love the team quite a bit.
Chris, you admitted to crying when they won the World Series in our first show. If you guys don't recall that, please go back and listen to the first show. The first 5 minutes, he says that, yes, he cried when they won the World Series. Actually, it may have been the last segment. But either way, I have it on the record that you had tears out of the eyes when they got the first ring back in 2010.
Absolutely I did, because I remember not only losing to the A's in 1989, but to the Angels after being ahead 3 runs in the bottom of the 8th in Game 6 and losing Games 6 and 7 to the Angels in 2002. Yes, I remember both of those World Series. I broke my nose on a railing in Game 3 of the World Series when the earthquake hit, when the Loma Prieta earthquake hit. So, yes, I cried a little when they won in 2010.
Well, when your manager has his, 2-year-old son as the bat boy, and, you have 3 guys crossing home plate, and one has to scoop him up so he doesn't get trampled, that might mess with your head a little bit. You might think, oh, crap, we're going to get cut. Back to the White Sox.
Run him over.
Oh, that's cold, man. Come on, that'd be nice. I get Dusty's out here, working for the Nats, but you got to be nice. We've already mentioned that Chris Sale is Chris Sale. We don't have to get into that. Something you haven't heard, and I mentioned the Padres rebuilding. They traded James Shields to the White Sox. Now, his first start, and James Shields has been off. We have not seen the same type of stuff from him that we saw when he was really anchoring that rotation in Tampa Bay along with David Price. But he has gotten picked up. I think it's a good pickup if he finds everything again. He's a career 3.78 ERA. Right now he has a 5.06 ERA. So he's always been higher on the ERA scale. His highest was a 5.18 in 2010. But let me see. His first start in Chicago this year, he gave up 8 hits, 7 earned runs, 3 long balls, and has a 31.5 ERA. Granted, it's only one game, but if he can find it again, they can use him to bolster that rotation. Kansas City used him to get on the right track, towards the World Series. He went to San Diego. They win the World Series that next year. So, he was a good anchor for that staff when they got started, and they have a lot of young talent now. I think that the White Sox are a more veteran team. So I think being in an environment that isn't as much turmoil as we've seen in San Diego, I think he'll find it again. I really do.
Well, at the risk of sounding biased, not all pitchers are created equal. Some give up long balls, and some hit them. And Madison Bumgarner hits them. And
yes, he does.
He wants to hit them for fun this summer. He is petitioned to be allowed to join the home run derby at the All-Star break. And there are some people behind him. This is an interesting story.
Quite a few. Jason Stark and Buster Olney from ESPN both have come out saying that they're leading the charge for Bumgarner to be in the Derby. I'm going to throw the numbers out there, and then I've got a bunch of opinions of it. I think it's going to be great. Bumgarner has 13 home runs since the 2012 season. That's when they started. We see him commonly used as a pinch hitter for Bochy on his off days. We know he can hit. I told you I had a stat that I wanted to tell you, and I wasn't going to tell you until we were on the air. In Mad Bum's last 190 at-bats, he has hit 11 home runs. My question to you, Chris Furry, do you know the 2 other players currently in the majors that match that statistic? I'll wait.
No.
Mike Trout and Bryce Harper. So if you consider those guys big names, if you consider them big names, then Madison Bumgarner is sitting in pretty nice company.
Yeah. Well,
the two guys that are widely considered the faces of baseball on the East and West Coast, I think Buster Posey's one too, but it's not because I'm biased. I just think he's what the game should be. But
Buster Posey actually won the Face of Baseball contest, so I think that maybe he is in that place.
So there it is. Your boy, 11 homers in his last 190 ABs, same as Mike Trout and Bryce Harper. Now, Boach originally said that he would let Bumgarner participate, but when Buster only said, okay, because I think you were still in the country, you might have been getting ready to fly out, but they were in St. Louis, and Bumgarner hit one over the Big Mac land sign in St. Louis in left field. I mean, put on a show. And then, unfortunately, Bochy said to Buster Olney, quote, no, to be serious, I couldn't let him do it. We couldn't let him do it, end quote.
I think that Boach has a point. Hitting home runs in single at-bats is flashy and it's fun and it's not easy to do off big league pitchers. but swinging for the fences every swing for 20 and 30 pitches at a time in a home run derby.
Yep, 4 minutes, I believe, is now that it's timed. It's 4, maybe
right.
5. I think they're going to hold it at 4 minutes per round to hit.
That's it's painful. It hurts.
Yes,
and you can hurt yourself. Even guys who are hitters probably don't really enjoy it while they're doing it.
Right.
Because it's painful. It's not a great experience. And a guy like Madison Bumgarner is going to come out of the All-Star break, and he's probably going to pitch that first game.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I remember you telling me, didn't you play a game with a bruised or broken or cracked rib in high school? I mean, I think you were telling me you were batting. If I might be misremembering, I thought you told me that.
I played a season with bruised ribs, and for 2 or 3 games they were cracked. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm with you, and I get the concern. He's not an everyday hitter. He's a pitcher, and we've seen Miguel Cabrera, who his swing is very fluid. It's a very nice swing, but it's still aggressive. And we saw him deal with an oblique injury, and there is definitely a risk of an oblique or upper body issue from the torque. But because he's competitive, he's going to swing hard as he can. He wants to win, and I get it. Usually, what you see a lot of times is the ace normally pitches a game or two prior to the All-Star game, and they'll let him kind of stay out of it. And I think that reasoning alone, the way that managers want to rest their guys, is why baseball should stop making the All-Star game count, and we will get into that soon. But it's the All-Star game, man. Let them do it. It's supposed to be enjoyable for the players and the fans. Yeah. It's been muddled up enough. The likelihood he moves past the first round is probably below 50%, but if he does, then that's the story. I mean, last year the story was, hey, new take on the home run derby, it's dying, and then what happens? You have the Todd father, Todd Frazier, in Cincinnati before he went to Chicago, the White Sox this year. He ended up winning it, and it took over. So there's more drama because you're up against the clock. You're not just taking pitches. You're up against the clock. So you got to get a good pitch. You got to put a good swing on it. So I say go for it. The stadium will be behind it. It's in San Diego this year, so you're going to have a lot of people from the Bay Area that probably can go up there that are going to be willing to watch, kind of want to watch. I think he'll be the hometown per se favorite just because he's from California. I think it'd be great.
I think that I think you have a point. I would love to see it. Obviously, I would love to see Madison Bumgarner hit in the home run derby. But let's put this into a little bit of perspective. Okay? Yeah, Madison Bumgarner sitting in great company with Bryce Harper and who else did you say? What was that other guy's name?
Mike Trout.
Mike Trout, one of the best hitters in the Major League Baseball. Anyway, yes, he is sitting in great company with those two guys. But let's not forget that those 119 at bats for Madison Bumgarner came over the course of probably 2 or 3 seasons, whereas Mike Trout and Bryce Harper did that this year.
Correct.
Madison Bumgarner hasn't gotten to the plate 119 times this year. In fact, he only has 405 at bats in this whole shebang.
Yes, he has 34 at bats this year so far.
Right. So while it sounds really great and it's a great stat to throw out, it's not quite the same thing.
It's not, the fact. I think the bigger fact is the fact that hey, it's almost more impressive for him because of how long of a stretch it is. But you still have torque on the body when you're pitching. And I think, let's be honest, Bumgarner is a rare breed of pitcher. But my hope is that if we're lucky, he's becoming kind of the first of a new breed.
Bumgarner throws like Sandy Koufax, though. He doesn't torque real hard.
Well, no, but he's taller. He has the longer arms. It's a lot more arm. Because he's so tall,
a three-quarter pitcher.
Legs. He is, but this is my point. Obviously, umpiring, majority of the games I do are high school games. I've done my fair share of other stuff, but you see a lot of pitchers in high school that really are both accomplished pitchers, but they're also good hitters. There's a kid down here where I am who they would use as a DH a lot of times when he wasn't hitting. And I think that, granted, the lower levels of minor league baseball use the DH. I think you're going to start seeing guys that are good both on the hill and in the box. It's not going to be a ton, but it's there. Noah Syndergaard has 3 homers in 2 seasons playing, and Jake Arrieta has hit 3 home runs in his 2+ seasons in the NL with the Cubs. So, I mean, we're taking a guy who came from the American League who didn't have to hit, period, who has put some pop into the ball. So I get you're not going to make these guys, they're not going to be, your perennial power hitter. But if he wants to do it, if it's a one-time thing, I get there's a risk of injury, but there's a risk of injury playing in the All-Star game. I mean, you could get hit. You could, running into the wall. I mean, we see Yasiel Puig, Bryce Harper. They play hard no matter what. And now with there being something on the line, the risk is there. And you can argue, if you want to argue with me, at OOLeftField on Twitter or OOLeftField@gmail.com, that this is an unnecessary risk. And yes, big picture, it probably is. But it's supposed to be fun. And if he wants to do it, give him a chance. I don't think he's going to do it every year. But I think he wants that one chance to say, you know what, I got in the box, I gave it a shot, it was fun. Thanks, thanks, Skip. Let's go to work. And then I think at that point it'll be dead.
Right. No, I agree. And like I said, I would love to watch him do it. But I'll say this, and this is the last time that I'll get up on my soapbox. It's not uncommon at the lower level for pitchers to be good hitters. In fact, it's not uncommon for pitchers to be good hitters at all, except there's a culture in Major League Baseball, and it starts when you get drafted, that once you're a pitcher, that's what you are. And you don't take BP, and you don't practice hitting, and you don't keep working on your mechanics in the box. You only work on being a pitcher. And so you lose some of that ability to swing the bat. And the reason you still have it in high school is because in high school, when you need to relieve a pitcher, you turn and look at your shortstop and say, hey, come pitch.
Right.
So these guys have to hit.
That.
So
I get that.
But it's not a new thing. I mean, let's not forget that one of the greatest hitters of all time
was originally
George Herman
pitcher.
Ruth.
Yeah.
Was a pitcher. Not just a pitcher, but a great pitcher. Another person in whose great company Madison Bumgarner stands for his performance in the World Series.
True.
Is Babe Ruth.
Here is this is my biggest response. I think to a point, Major League Baseball teams are failing pitchers by basically saying you're no longer a hitter. Because Tony La Russa was big on doing this. Joe Madden has started to, where he will hit his pitchers 8th. It gives you 2 leadoff guys. You're 9 in your 1 spot pretty much. But now you look at guys that, you know what? What are they going to do? They're going to square. So bring in your third baseman. You get a runner on first. He's going to square the bunt. Bring him in. Hopefully he pops it up or hits it hard enough on the line where you can throw to second. Madison Bumgarner is rarely ever squaring the bunt. They would rather let him swing away. And, yeah, there's a possibility that he's going to strike out or going to ground out. There's also a good possibility that, similar to the game 2 weeks ago, he's going to drive in the only run of the game and get himself a W. So I think the team should still – I'm not saying that you focus on hitting as much with pitchers as you do with your standard everyday around-the-horn fielders, but it should not be so far forgotten that when they go up there, It's just, okay, let me get my obligatory swing, and away we go.
Right. It shouldn't be a gimme out. And
correct.
It has become that. It has become a gimme out.
And I'm okay, and this is, again, why I would like to see Major League Baseball go back to the way the All-Star game used to be. I'm fine if you want to have the DH in the All-Star game, regardless of the league field where it's played in. For example, this year's being played in a National League field, because people want to see hits. Now, if you want if you want to say, hey, you know what? If I'm behind the plate, Graham, we're going to let Madison hit. We don't want to kill the DH, but we want to let him hit. Okay, you know what? Come in, whatever. You got to follow the rules, but if you want him to hit, put him in, double swing, however you want to, let him get a swing, and there you go. But the amount of pitchers that
put him in left field, I bet he can play that position.
Yeah. So, I don't know. To me, it's a disservice to pitchers to make them such poor hitters. Now, some guys aren't good with the stick at all, and that's fine. That's why you're a pitcher. But there are going to be those guys that are, and don't let that talent go to waste just because they have a better talent, slinging the ball than they do hitting and fielding the ball.
I agree.
Try and develop both.
I agree.
Guys, we finally got you a show just about an hour. We told you we were going to try and do it. Our goal is to keep the show right around 45 minutes to an hour. So, Chris, I'm glad you got on, pal. I'm glad you're having a good time out there.
I'm having a great time. It is after midnight here, so I think it's time for bed.
Your roommates are probably hating you right now. So, guys, again, we appreciate you listening. We're having a great time doing this. Please, if you're listening, tell your friends. Get them listening to us. Get them to follow us on Twitter at OOLeftField. Again, we'll respond to you if you tweet us, or you can email us at ooleftfield@gmail.com. We will talk to you guys next week. We got some good stuff coming up. Like I said, we're going to talk Giants and Dodgers. What you got, Battle?
I got one more thing, and I'll discuss this with you with everybody next week. Tomorrow morning, I am going to Omaha Beach.
Very cool.
We'll talk about that when we come back.
And I think that's a good time to broach another topic we've discussed, is that a July 3rd baseball game between the Marlins and the Braves is going to be played at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. And baseball is actually donating the stadium to the base to be used as a softball stadium for families and that kind of thing once the game is done. So I think that'll be that'll be a nice tie-in. I look forward to hearing it. I hope you get some pictures and share it with us. Battle, I had a blast, guys. We're having a blast doing this. Appreciate you guys listening. Again, get us on Twitter at OOLeftField or ooleftfield@gmail.com. Battle, great job, and I will talk with you next week, and be safe over there.
I will do.